From Biff Tannen to Johnny Lawrence and all of those sons of bitches in between, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jason Burns.
And I'm Danny Nucci, and this is the What About podcast.
You got a favorite cinematic bully?
I do like Biff.
Mm-hmm.
I also like Chet.
Chet, Weird Science.
Weird Science, Chet.
Fucking fantastic movie.
I might even make up some shit. It's the best. God rest his soul, Bill Paxton. Yeah, I'm crazy about Chet.
Can you imagine the pitch for a movie, even back then in the weird time of the 80s, where it's a couple of teenagers make a supermodel on a computer and somebody going, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Let's do that.
That sounds great. Yeah. Well, you can't make that movie now for so many reasons.
For so many reasons, but yeah.
So many reasons, but at the time it was just a classic. And I mean, Chet was so quotable.
And he had a fantastic burp, that open mouth, tongue out burp.
How's about a nice, greasy pork sandwich served up on a dirty ashtray?
Oh, that's a good one.
While he's trying to cold down his liquor.
We got a bully. We got ourselves a bully here today.
We got a bully. We got a classic bully. We got a Christmas bully.
Mm-hmm.
Zack Ward, which is so funny because he's kind of an established actor, done a ton of stuff. He's a producer. To hear him tell it, he owns a mini studio, which is kind of great, which is kind of cool. He does a lot of interesting things, including supporting awareness of Alzheimer's. And after we got off, he talked a little bit about motorcycles, but that's not for everyone. That was fun.
It's not for me.
That's for you. Anyway, without further ado, here he is, Zack Ward.
Well, Zack, thanks for joining us. I wanted to start because, I was kind of blown away by some early research to learn that your mother was a Care Bear.
Not everybody can say my mother was a Care Bear.
Yeah. She's also an Inuyasha. It's a Japanese anime that's been turned into an American show. It's about some sort of half fox demon kid with a giant sword.
That sounds anime, right?
Yeah, he plays the grandmother in that, which gets some of the kids at the cons very excited. But the Care Bear thing was hilarious.
Are you guys from LA? Is your family from LA? Did you
No,
grow up here?
I'm from Toronto. I'm from Toronto.
You're from Toronto.
Yeah, from Toronto.
Was Christmas Story shot in... No, it wasn't shot in Canada. It was shot in Indiana, wasn't it?
Yeah, part of it
was shot in Canada.
We shot in Cleveland, Ohio, St. Catharines, Ontario, and Toronto, Ontario. So they were using the tax rebates to shoot all the stage stuff in Toronto. And like any place, you have to do a certain amount of casting in the country you're going to be shooting in order to qualify for the tax rebates. So that's how I auditioned.
Zack Ward's career was launched?
Pretty much. I started off at the age of my mom's an actress, and I started off at the age of 10 auditioning for commercials and stuff like that, and then got into, I think my first one was some Dolly Madison ice cream, and then a Jell-O commercial back when I was young and cute and had a little nose and big eyes, as opposed to now where I have...
It changes on you, doesn't it?
Why do our noses and ears on men continue to grow the older we get? Why is
I don't understand it.
Just to mess with us. So yeah, then I auditioned for a Christmas Story, and then basically got the job. But I was the sidekick, not the bully, when I got the job.
You were Toady, the Toad.
Yeah, I was the Toady. I literally had the lines of like, "Nah, your Aunt Tilly, get over here," and that was it. And then I got to set, and then the director saw that I was a foot taller than the other guy.
Everybody else?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And he goes, all right, you get his lines, he gets yours.
It's crazy that this could be, and I know you didn't realize it at the time, Zack, especially even after it was released, but that you could essentially hit a home run your first up at bat in a film to be, here we are talking about it 40 years later now.
Yeah, but it wasn't like Titanic. I mean, it wasn't a home run when it happened. It wasn't a blockbuster. It bombed. And it came out 2 years in a row, and nobody cared. And actually, even worse than nobody cared. What's the guy who used to be on Entertainment Tonight? And
John Tesh, piano player?
No, I'm talking about the guy who did the reviews. He did a scathing review, hated the movie, then came out a year later saying he liked it. So really no one gave a shit for about 20 years.
See, I disagree with that, Zach, because I saw it on HBO, 85.
Okay, but you're weird. So, but just the general.
But that's not why I loved it.
No, but the general public. No. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say you're weird, Jason. I love you. You're quite an interesting human being with wonderful taste.
Thank you.
However,
He's weird.
That being said, at what point did you see it turn, Zach? What point did you go, oh, nobody cares and now everybody cares? Was it a slow burn or did it happen suddenly?
It was a weird one, Danny, because it was like, let's make the comparison. Titanic comes up, boom, huge blockbuster. Christmas Story comes out, nobody cares. Comes out a second year, nobody cares. And then slowly over time, because this is older, man, this is when VHS cassettes cost $100 and $100 was 3 days labor or something. It was $100 was $100. So people were collecting it. They would trade them around, right? Because you didn't have any streaming platforms and you didn't have cable back then even. So people were passing it around. And then it got onto so people would talk to me and they'd be like, I think I know you from somewhere. And I'd be like 17 years old working in a deli in Toronto as a waiter. And they'd be like, oh, you're that guy from A Christmas Story. I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to do other stuff, as if my career was going to blow up one day and I'd be a big star. And they'd be like, yeah, we love that movie. I'm like, thanks. Do you want some more jelly on your cheese Danish? That type of thing. So it was kind of like, as I grew up, it was like, right now, nobody knows it. Then 1 out of 10 people know the movie. Then 2, then 3, then 4. And it was slowly built up year after year after year until about the 20th anniversary. So 20 years ago, what does that make it? 2003, where it was, the house was opening up. We did a Christmas Story fundraiser for Toys for Tots down in Orange County or Laguna Beach. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. And we're there. Darren McGavin's there. Bob Clark was there. Peter was there. But all of us were like, meh, I guess so. Sure, whatever. And I had done Titus and other stuff. And Christmas Story was sort of like the thing I'd done as a kid. But it didn't really have the traction. And I was standing inside the theater that was going to do the screening. And I just poked my head out the door to look down the street. Honestly, I was going to go out and have a cigarette. And I opened the door and I looked down the street and there is no street. There's just people, like 10,000 fucking people lined up just deep. And I'm sure, Danny, you've seen this stuff because of Titanic and everything. But for a little movie that had no promo, this was bizarre, dude. And I poked my head out and like 10,000 people go, yay! And it's terrifying. Like it's like being a Beatle or something. And that's when it's really started to build this momentum. And then during that time, like, guys, it's in the Library of Congress as one of the top 100 most important pieces of cinema from the last 100 years, which I'm sure Titanic is as well. And then we're in the Smithsonian. So I'm literally a national treasure.
You are a national treasure. Hey, don't kid yourself.
Nicolas Cage behind me. Let me know, because he's always.
Do you remember what it opened against when it first opened that first year?
I think it was like Rambo or something. Like, it was not good. Like it.
Rambo Christmas Story.
It was. You guys will get this, and this might be a little too inside baseball for most of the listeners, but when there's a studio president or a network, studio president. And then one studio president leaves, and the new studio president comes in. The new studio president does everything they can to demolish the last studio president's projects. So it's
like a new girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's not any different.
Yeah. We just shit all over it.
It's like the new girlfriend or the new wife. We're getting rid of the furniture. Yeah. We're getting a different house.
Yeah. I mean, apparently we touched on a topic already, so okay.
No, I mean, just, this is what I've heard. Yeah. I know people. I've been around a while. I've heard things.
People magazine.
I've heard things. That's all. I've heard things. So this was like, this didn't really blow up till 20 years later.
Yeah.
So so it became a classic 20 years after it was a classic.
Yeah, and it was the craziest thing, dude, because MGM went bankrupt and they sold off their library and Turner bought it. And so they had A Christmas Story for like $250,000. They didn't pay dick on this thing. And you guys know the legend of It's a Wonderful Life, right? How that used to play a marathon all the time. You know why that happened?
I don't. No.
No.
Very interesting, because in Americana, and this is we're peeling back the curtain for the listening public, people like to romanticize the process. But if you get yourself a TV station, you have to get a license from the FCC, and you are required by law to put stuff on the air, and it costs you money. And if you're not going to have any advertisers, you lose money. So I can't remember his name off the top of my name. Kafka. Frank Kafka forgot to file the copyright paperwork on it. So
Frank Capra. Franz Kafka wrote the other one. The other one.
Right. I'm sorry. Yes, please correct me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, they're both fantastic artists in their own right.
So he forgot to file the copyright. So all these TV stations were like, well, I don't have to pay anything to run It's a Wonderful Life. So I'll just play it over and over again because there's no advertisers on Christmas. So following in that model, Turner was like, we got this movie. It's super cheap. And irony of ironies.
We can air it all the time.
But the secretary, Turner's secretary, was a fan of the movie. And she was like, hey, you should play this. And she played it for Ted Turner and his wife, Barbarella.
Jane Fonda?
Jane Fonda.
Also known as Barbarella.
Also known as Barbarella. Sorry, I've been flying around a lot. So plays it for them, and they're like, oh, this is delightful. Yeah. And they know they're not going to lose any money, so they play it. And slowly it keeps on building up more and more audience to like the 8 o'clock screening has more viewers than the Super Bowl.
Wow.
And that's crazy. So that's how it made this massive comeback.
What's so interesting about that is that if you probably ask the general public, they're thinking, well, this movie was so big for everybody that they played it 24 hours in a row. And then it becomes almost like War of the Worlds, right? Like, well, now I got to pay attention to it because everybody else is paying attention to it.
I think that's what's cool about it, too. The thing that I think is so sweet and kind about it is that really it was chosen by the audience, because if they didn't like it, they wouldn't watch it. It never would have had a second-year marathon. But it kept on growing, and the numbers were good. And as we all know, the money follows the numbers. So the audience chose the movie. It wasn't chosen for them. They weren't told to watch it. It was just something that they identified with, kind of like the Shawshank Redemption. Great movie, died at the box office, and is a beautiful film that I'm sure we all go, oh my God, what a great movie.
I don't want to talk about, the movie you're most known for forever. I may have a little experience in that area, but I actually wanted to, I wanted to ask you about being a 17-year-old in Toronto thinking, okay, I'm going to do more stuff. And you actually did more stuff. What was the jump? Were you working in Toronto? Did you have an agent? Because I mean, at that time, Toronto was really one of the places that was a really desirable location for a lot of Hollywood at that time.
Yeah.
So there was work. There was a lot of work, and the crews were just as good.
I was at a convention, and I just met up with the cast of Scream again. And I know Nev Campbell from Toronto. And my point of that is we all kind of knew each other. The people who worked, it wasn't like here in LA where you got 330 million people in the United States. They all want to go to Hollywood. They all want to be a star. And most of them suck. And then the cream rises to the crop, depending upon, who likes you and who doesn't like you. As we all know, it can be very, it's got its own politics. But in Toronto, it's a very small pool. So you are up for pretty much everything, and you've got a pretty good shot if you don't suck. And being a redhead, with a redhead with slanty eyes and a punchable face, Danny, it's like nobody ever wrote me in a script. They're like, oh, gee, I really want this redhead guy who's kind of likable, but kind of an ass, and he makes me laugh, but I want to kick him in the face. That sounds awesome. I've never read me in a script once. My entire career has been trying to convince people that I could do a job that they're like, but he's weird looking. That just doesn't fit with anything.
But do you think it helped you, Zach, that that A Christmas Story didn't blow up right away because you weren't typecasted because it wasn't such a big deal in the early going?
Maybe. I mean, the reality is Canada doesn't have a star system, dude. So nobody gave a shit. And like literally when I was doing commercials and I'm in high school and I was the Doritos kid for a year, uh, I mean, I got my ass kicked because of it. Like guys on the hockey team would just grab my sweater, pull it over my head, and punch me in the face, which is we call turtling. And like that was your level of fame. It wasn't like going to Hollywood High.
Yeah.
There, but because of that, there wasn't a lot of competition that was recognized or dependable. So I worked a lot. I did a lot of stuff to the point when I first came out to LA, and I think I was 20, 20, and I showed a first agent my resume, and they're like, "Oh, you're lying." Like what? Because this is 34
Right.
years ago.
What were you? What
There's
were
no
you doing?
IMDb
Were you
Pro.
doing Canadian shows? Were you doing American shows in Toronto?
Well, in Toronto it was mostly Canadian shows and stuff, but they were just like, "Oh, you're a liar." And I just gave up, went to college, and then didn't even try to act when I was here the first time.
You went to school in Toronto?
No, I went to school in LA. I went to Glendale Community College for a whole semester and a half.
Good for you.
Oh yeah, I'm proud.
Oh yeah. So you moved here to act. You were like, you had a resume and you came in. Did you come here without an agent?
I did. I came here the first time without an agent at 20. I spent about 6
Did you think you were old and washed up at 20? You did, didn't you? You thought,
yeah.
that's it. I'm behind the 8 ball already. I don't have representation. Everything's moving too fast. I don't have a chance here, but I'm going to do it anyway. And what did your mom, being the actress, go? You're going to what? Doing what? When?
Well, it was funny because I moved out of the house when I was 18, and I spent like 2 years traveling around the world by myself. And then I went back to Toronto.
Hold on. Wait a minute. The fuck did that happen?
Actually, so because I've been working since I was like 6 years old, like shoveling snow and working at the local Five and Dime to make money to help the family out. And so it just became one thing after the other. And my money all went towards rent and food and gas and stuff like that. And so when I was finishing off high school, I just felt overwhelmed. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do in college. I don't have a direction.
Suddenly the stakes were higher, right? Because now you had to take care of yourself in a way.
Were you looking at going to college and were you looking at going to college in Canada? Like,
no, I always thought I'd go to college in California. I'd get my AA at Glendale Community, and then go to UCLA or USC or something. And I didn't.
But you were coming to California to act either way. But at this point, you're 17 or 16 or 18,
yeah,
and you're like,
I was like 17 years old. I was like 17, but my problem was 17 or 18, and I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, and I'm the one paying for everything. And if I don't have a direction, this feels kind of stupid. And my mom brought out an atlas and opened it up to she brought out an encyclopedia and opened it up to the atlas and showed.
Can you explain to the listener what an encyclopedia is? No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
Book is paper with words and information.
So she opens up the atlas, right?
And she shows me it's the picture of the world. And she goes, Zacharias, this all belongs to you. You can go anywhere you want. You just have to choose. And it was the most beautiful moment because she was really saying, the world is your oyster. Don't feel limited. Don't feel like you're cornered. You are only restricted by your vision.
It also sounds like because you were helping out at home, she was like, don't worry about us. We'll be fine. Go and do you.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then she met a guy on the subway in Toronto who was asking for directions and had an Australian accent. And he was there. He had for a dog food convention because he's
wow.
He was a rancher.
Can't make that shit up, bro. Can't make that shit up.
You can't. He was a rancher in Australia, and his name is Tony Gordon. And so my mom was like, "Oh, you've got such a lovely accent. Oh, where are you from?" Because my mom likes to pretend like she was raised in Long Island, but studied at RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Acting. So she was doing theater with Maggie Smith. She's a very respected actress, so she's a little theatrical.
Well, they're also very English in Toronto.
Yeah.
They can be very English in Toronto, yeah.
Yeah. And so she got his address, and I sent him letters and asked if I could come work on his cattle station. And then as a Canadian, I was able to get a visa as long as I could show that I had $10,000 in my bank account. So I saved up 5 and borrowed 5 to show the Australian consulate that I had 10 grand. And then I gave them 5 grand back to the friend I borrowed it from.
Once the job is done, of course.
And then I went to LA, and then I flew to Australia, and I worked on the cattle station there for about 4 months, herding cattle and helping to shear sheep. And then I joined the circus, and I was in the circus for about a year. And Ashton Circus.
Hold on. How did you join the circus, and how'd they go, okay, you?
Well, they were just looking for, I wasn't a performer. I was a rigger. So I put up the tent, pulled down the tent, fed the lions and the tigers, and took care of
you literally joined the friggin' circus. Like, you are one of those people that actually left town and joined the circus.
My dad had given me a book when I was a kid, and I wasn't raised with my father. So when he gave me gifts, they were pretty special. And one was called Toby Tyler Joins the Circus, and it's a very classic American novel. And the little boy on the front of it had red hair. And as a redhead, we're less than 2% of the world population, so we don't often see ourselves.
And it's getting smaller because eventually there will be no redheads left. I was just reading an article about this, that because it's a recessive gene, eventually there will be no redheads left.
Well, we're doing a big thing coming up in January. It's going to be in Miami. We're going to have a redhead fest where we impregnate as many people as you want to line up for it. It's great.
I'd like to see the poster for that one.
We're only charging you $1,500.
This sounds fantastic. I've never regretted not being a redhead more.
I'm kidding.
What about Bullies? So we want to move on, given that you played a bully.
In your younger days, more likely to be bully or bullied?
I went to 8 different schools before junior high. So I was a new kid. I didn't have a dad. I didn't play hockey, but I was living in Canada. I was named Zach. There were no other Zachs. I had red hair. There were no other redheads.
Your name wasn't Gordon. You were out.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a miniature poodle named Tinkerbell.
This is a problem.
Yeah. That's what happens when you don't have a father as a kid, and you think like, well, Peter Pan has red hair. I have red hair. I'm 7. Peter Pan's sidekick is, I'm like Peter Pan, and Peter Pan's sidekick is Tinkerbell, so I should name my miniature poodle Tinkerbell. And your mother, who's a hippie, is like, oh, that's beautiful, darling.
Gorgeous. Whatever you want.
And your father would say, buddy, that is a great secret name. Why don't we call your dog Magnum PI? Because it's the 70s.
So going back to the days of being bullied, for me, the worst year was I think 7th grade, the junior high year where people were changing, right? Like suddenly my best friend was picking on me. And I was like, what the fuck? So what year was your rough year?
Yeah, grade 7 and 8 was weird because people suddenly got much larger. And you were shocked. The few times I got to see my dad when I was younger, he taught me boxing. So he was a Golden Gloves boxer. And so because I was getting in so many fights at all these schools, I wasn't playing chesty, pushing somebody away. I was straight up just going with a jab and a cross because that's what I was taught. And then in 7 and 8, these guys suddenly have mustaches. And they're packed on 30 pounds. And when you hit them, they go, and then you run real fast. Right?
Was it a bit of like a fantasy fun world to get to play the bully when you were playing Scut Farkus? I mean, you had some experience on the other side of it.
Yeah, it felt like revenge. Like I felt like I was belittling them a little bit. Like I was kind of mocking Scut Farkus.
Look how stupid you look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah, but I was listening to you. I'm going, okay, so basically, you might be ostracized from a friend group or belittled, and then eventually you graduate, you leave school, you grow, people change. Cyberbullying is a whole other. That's a whole other ball of wax.
Kids then.
I feel sorry. I've done stuff with cyberbullying to help out, and these kids actually gave me the moniker, gamer tag of Darth Farkus, which was pretty cool.
How did that come about?
I was just helping out online, talking to some kids, and then we played some video games online.
What are some of the stories you heard, just for the people that, I mean, everybody's got their stories. I mean, some of them are, to me, are just hideous. Like, I have a friend now, they're literally looking at boarding schools to just help the child. Like, just get them out.
There was one girl, she had an cochlear implant. You know, when they put the implant into your head so you can hear, and she definitely had some developmental problems. And there were people making fun of her and then being physical with her. And I got to be honest, the old man in me is like, go punch that kid in the face.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's the first, second, and third. I will friggin' kill this kid. I will go to prison and I will choke this kid out. I know.
Did you see True Detective? Do you watch the third season of True Detective with Colin Farrell?
The second one. Yeah, the second one with Colin Farrell. Yeah.
Was that second or whatever?
Yeah.
And then the kid is...
Third was Mahershala. The third one was Mahershala.
Oh, real? Okay. Well, the one with Colin Farrell, and his kid is getting picked on, and he goes over to the kid's house, calls out his dad, and starts beating the shit out of his father in front of the kid. And he's like, "You touch my son again, I'll come back and kill your father." And I just, like, you can't do that, but God, it felt good to watch.
God, well, that's what the movies are great for, right? Like, this is what I want to do but can't do.
Yeah.
But we also grew up in a different time where you could kind of do that. I mean, that's what my parents would have said back in the day, which is like, well, just stand up for yourself and, you know, knock them down. You're bigger than... I was a big kid. I was a hefty.
But so much of the development of friendships and status and who you are in the world at a very difficult developing age. You know, I'm thinking mostly early high school and middle school. All these kids are savvy and able to post things and be creative and just let all those uncomfortable feelings turn into like just abuse.
Yeah.
Outright abuse. And I don't, you know, and at that age, you're still developing. I don't think you're mentally strong enough to be able to separate, you know, how you feel from reality. Like, you can't tell those kids, like, it's not going to matter in 5 years. You know, they don't, it's hard to grasp.
The world is so all consuming when you're that age that you can't see beyond that, you know? So it just, everything is sort of magnified. But I will say this, I have 2 young kids, and their generation is just different. I see my kids sticking up for other kids, and there's just like this vibe.
There's an awareness. That's true.
Yes,
there is an awareness, and there is.
How old are your kids, Jason?
11 and 7.
Do you have kids?
No, I have cats.
Sure, much easier, I can tell you.
Cats are also bullies,
but the
though.
weird thing is Jason's kids also crap in a box, which I think is strange.
Which is weird.
They do. Weird. Right under my desk right here. It's very stinky.
It's lovely. But it makes you feel close to them.
Yeah.
No, I have 2 daughters, 27 and 18. And the 18-year-old's generation that I got to see was much more conscious and supportive and aware. And the system of ratting out was already in place. My 27-year-old, which was 8 years earlier, that was not in place. That was like, that became drama.
I've noticed that too. Like the 20, the 20 to the kids who are now 30, they grew up in that generation where the internet and God, I sound old, but the social media was so exciting and so all encompassing. Whereas now the newer kids, that was already existing. It wasn't that, it was like, yeah, that's there, whatever. And they're not taking it as seriously. And I wonder if that paradigm will shift because it's not as important, just like how all of us were excited about MySpace, then went to Facebook. And dude, I can't tell you the last time I looked at Facebook. I don't give a shit. You know, I post shit on Instagram and Twitter. It's business, or I'm raising money for Alzheimer's. And I'm sharing pictures of my cats because it makes people smile, right? But otherwise, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not there to hear somebody's asshole opinion about politics, religion, weed, alcohol, anything. I don't get into it. You know, I'm not educated enough to tell you how to think or feel about anything.
That doesn't stop anybody else, Zach.
I know, right? That's the problem.
That's certainly not a deterrent for anyone.
It is for me. If I don't know something about something, I'm like, I'm out.
Even if I do, anybody that listens to this and can go on my social medias, I don't get into anything. Do you know why? Because it doesn't help anyone.
No.
It helps nobody.
No.
My opinion about world events does not help anyone. What helps people is what I do outside of social media. That helps people
in real life.
And that's well, the one-on-one, that's all it needs to be, or what you do behind the scenes, like what you do in terms of Alzheimer's research. How did you get into that?
My father has Alzheimer's. He was diagnosed like 4 years ago. And so I've been working with him because for 2 weeks out of the year, people give a shit that I exist. So I figured I'd use that opportunity to bring attention to Alzheimer's, and it is what it is.
It's just so funny. It's funny the way, but that's actually true.
Yeah,
that's what's funny about it, is that's actually true.
And look, and I'm grateful for it. Let's be honest. I was in A Christmas Story when I was 13 years old. I didn't write it. I didn't direct it. I didn't edit it. I wasn't a production designer. I didn't like the movie. I didn't DP it. I was a 13-year-old kid with braces who had a perfect look for that moment. I was an okay actor, I guess. I believe that Bob Clark pulled it out of me. I had a great experience with Bob. I was fucking up my lines at one moment, and he just shut the crew down, came over to me, and ran lines and got it going. And he was he was very sweet and kind, but also that uncle who's like, okay, stop fooling around. Let's run it. Let's run it again. Do it one more time. Say the line. Now say it really slow. Now say it really fast. Now say it super loud. Now say it super quiet. And then you go, great. And you start to walk away and go, one more time. What is that? What is that? Oh, great. Here we go. Have fun. And so everything that's on that screen is selected by Bob Clark. The movie turned into what it is because of what Bob Clark did and committed to it, and Gene Shepard. I'm a small part of that. I'm honored and blessed to have that opportunity. I'm glad that I get to do what I do for a living. I enjoy it when it works. A lot of times it doesn't. For 2 weeks out of the year, it matters that I exist. I'm fortunate. I'm very blessed to have this opportunity and this platform. So it's great.
And using it to create awareness is great.
Think about it in terms of the other 99.9% of the population. Nobody cares that they exist at all any of the weeks of the year. So.
And otherwise, how would you know about the redhead ginger impregnation program?
You would not. That's a very good point. Listen, we have an audience question, and this week's is quite special. So I'm going to let Jason do it.
Yes. My son, who, as we talked about, is 11 years old, and A Christmas Story has become a part of his routine, fabric, holiday tradition as well. So
nice.
He wanted to ask this audience question, and it goes like this. You were just a kid during A Christmas Story. Did you really want the role, and why?
Did I really want the role? When I first auditioned for it, it wasn't much of a role. And it was, get over here, kid. Nah, you're Aunt Tilly, which is funny dialogue, but it didn't drive me. I wasn't like, oh my God, please, please. And then I got the job because of my goofy face and braces. And then I got the dialogue of Scut Farkus, and I got to be the big old turd.
Which, by the way, is my nickname for my son, Turd. So he's going to enjoy that answer right there as well.
Oh, here's one. You can call him a Scut. Here's interesting. Because it's S-C-U-T, not Scott.
Yeah.
Scut Farkus.
Mm-hmm.
And Scut is Gaelic for cow diarrhea.
Oh.
So if you call someone a wee Scut, you're calling him a little shit.
Oh, there you go.
Wee Scut there.
Question, I never really, I wanted the job. I didn't know about the role. Then when I got the chance to play it, my mom helped me, because she's an actress. She helped me run the lines and start to get into playing the character. And especially once you have the wardrobe on, you can see it in the mirror, and you can play the moment where you're tilting your head like, yeah, you get over here. And it was fun. It was awesome. But the first time I saw dailies, I was with my mom and Bob Clark, and back then 35 mil. And we're watching dailies.
Where are you? Where are they screening dailies for the cast here?
It wasn't for the rest of the cast. Bob just invited me because he thought it looked awesome.
And okay, cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like, Bob was an amazing person.
I was gonna say, what a wonderful experience to have with a director. And now that you've directed, it's nice. You have a template for how to deal with actors, which is great.
And kids, which is, yeah.
And kids, yeah.
So we're watching the dailies, and it's some shot of me, and I'm just being a jerk in the scene, which is my job. And then the scene's over, and the lights come up, and Bob goes, "Yeah, great stuff. All right, yeah, good stuff, Zach. Good stuff. All right, see you, Pam." My mom's name. And they leave, and my mom goes, "Oh, it looks so great. Did you like that, Zach?" And I've got tears in my eyes, and she's like, "What is wrong?" And she's told me the story, and I look at her and go, "But I'm so ugly."
Oh.
Because my character,
Oh God.
right? I'm a 13-year-old boy. I don't want to be ugly. But you look at that kid with the hat and the face and the laughter and
the whole thing. Yeah, you were convincing. You convinced yourself.
Yeah.
Wow, man. The circus. Are you kidding me?
Did not see that one
like
coming.
Literally, but like it's just friggin' terrifying to me. Like the idea of being in somewhere in the world and your job is being a rigger. But I guess when you're young, you don't even think about it. But like, I can't imagine my kid, like knowing that my kid is in Australia building circus tents.
Well, we have to back that up a little bit because remember, it was his mom who met the man on the subway that was sent to live with him in Australia. So yeah, there's some intertwining stories there that need to be unraveled.
Yeah. But what a cool dude. And again, he's if you look at his credits, it's unbelievable the stuff that he's done.
I know. And I mean, we got to meet him in Miami for that Redhead Impregnation Festival.
Well, until we go to the Red Impregnating Festival in Miami, which I love that it's in Miami where there's no redheads. No, there's probably 4. Redheads probably do well in Miami. You got to figure they're a unicorn.
As a redhead, you don't want to spend a lot of time in the sun, I'm sure.
No, you don't want to spend a lot of time in the sun. All right. Well, thanks for listening.
Music by Denny Nucci. Produced and edited by the same 2 people you heard hosting this show because they have no friends.